Evening, chaps. It's October, it's cold, spooky time, you know what I mean? So, I thought we'd continue with the House of Night because vampires vaguely related to Halloween and the writing is scary. So if you'd like a quick recap of what's happened so far, Zoe has become a vampire fledgling. She has entered the House of Night, discovered that the High Priestess Neferis is not all that she seems, and has a plot to like take over the world or something. We're not quite sure yet. Anyway, she's resurrecting dead fledglings left, right, and centre, and she has broken the immortal Kelowna out of the earth to teach at the school. Oh no. Zoe and a little band of misfits have, of course, escaped to the abbey where her friends, the nuns, reside. That's where we're at right now. It's in this book that the cast starts introducing different points of view that aren't Zoe's. They're never told from a first person perspective, but we do get to follow other characters around when Zoe is not there, and so we're privy to a bit more information. In other books, this might be a good thing. Stephen King comes to mind. He has a really good habit of like getting into each character's head and really letting us get a feel for each character and feeling like these points of view are essential to the plot and to the development of said characters. This is not a book where this happens. In this first book, Tempted, it's only Stevie Ray and Aphrodite that we are privy to, and the narratives don't really feel very necessary. In fact, they feel wholly unnecessary in that they take away any mystery or opportunity for plot twists later on. Just any kind of instance where the reader might have something left to the imagination or something to wonder about. It completely derails that because with the first person narrative we were limited to only what Zoe could see and what Zoe knew. Introducing these other characters, we are privy to so much more information that there's literally no mystery left to the plot anymore. The reason I think that these other narratives were introduced was so that we could have more romance that wasn't just Zoe, because from now on Zoe is going to be a good girl and only have one or two boyfriends. And both of those boyfriends are going to be consenting in the multi-partner relationship. So obviously we needed romances to occur for Stevie Ray and for Aphrodite, and we wanted the reader to be privy for the more intimate of these romantic relations. And Zoe couldn't rightly stand in a corner while Aphrodite is making out with a boyfriend, right? So we can see from the perspective that this was kind of a self-insert kind of romance fantasy series that they would want to implement these other points of view, right? But as the series goes on, more and more points of view are introduced that seem more and more pointless until we're getting every random side character's little interactions with each other that really just don't mean anything and distract from what is at that point a very, very shaky plot as it is. Probably bears mentioning here that these narratives become so pointless that at the end of the book we're receiving the point of view of this one character who's like subservient to Neferret. She doesn't even have a romance. She doesn't even really contribute anything to the plots. She's just there, and so the cast duo felt the need to give us her perspective on a few things, I guess. Every point of view that isn't Zoe's ultimately feels like just a way to pad out the book, because it's at this point that any kind of semblance of real plot and structure goes out of the window. And it seems that the cast duo had a very vague idea of where they wanted the series to go and not a lot of meat on those bones. So the characters end up just sitting around talking about what they're going to do a lot and not actually doing any of it. And considering their plan for most things is just to cast a circle and see what happens, they spend a lot of time talking about it. We're introduced to Stevie Ray's point of view, and she rescues this guy called Rephaim. Rephaim is a raven marker who, if you remember, is the son of Kelowna, who is half bird. There are hints very early on that the two of them are going to get into like some kind of dark bestiality romance. Immediately raises questions because, like I said before, the descriptions of these guys are very vague, and I was previously picturing them as just like a full-on big bird with a human face. So I was like, how is she gonna fall in love with a bird right now? Are you shitting me? It becomes a little bit less of a shaky area later on, but it's really it's a little bit disturbing to be reading these awkward semi-romantic scenes between Stevie Ray and what I was previously picturing as basically a pigeon. A pigeon with big muscly arms. Oh, what's wrong with me? So now Zoe and Eric break up again. And Zoe and Eric break up again because obviously Zoe has had to get back into her imprint with Heath because she would die otherwise. And she's obviously got this connection with Stark through his warrior's oath. You know, the two of them get along very well, and there's clearly a romance blossoming between the two of them. Eric isn't happy about this. Eric's a one girl kind of guy, and he expects the girl to reciprocate that energy. Zoe just can't do that. Like, she just can't. She's got these spiritual connections to these other guys, and even though it doesn't necessarily mean that it's got to be romantic, it is. And so the relationship is not viable. And all of us been new about this for a while, but it's just Eric and Zoe are just kind of catching up. You know, we've got to make some kind of a little allowance for them. Okay. So Eric has been acting like a possessive, jealous, not very nice guy. And yeah, he is a dick during the course of this book and the last book because of this situation. You kind of have to take into account that Eric didn't ask for any of this. He's wanted Zoe to just be straight with him about it this entire time, and she hasn't. So you can understand why he might be feeling like a little bit of a dick. And yeah, he does express it in not a very good way by like being mean to the boys instead of just having it out with Zoe and being like, why are you being a bitch to me, fam? But he's a teenage boy. And of course, we can't ignore the real reason why Eric is being a dick here, and that is because the cast duo are making him act like a dick. And why might they want Eric to act like a dick when they previously had him as like this hero among the students who was a nice guy who got entranced by Aphrodite's good looks, so he overlooked her meanness? You know, they all used to like revere him and stuff, but now all they do is talk about how shallow he is and how he's always been a dick. And it's like, okay, so we're doing this retcon on Eric's character. Why? And it's because the cast duo know that Zoe has been a bitch to Eric, and they don't want us to realize that, and they think that maybe if they make Eric into a dick now, then we'll forget he was a good guy before, and we'll just remember the fact that he was a dick to Zoe, and we'll feel like it's this girl power moment when she breaks up with him. The Jacob Black effect, yeah, where like the author's kind of got to retroactively make this love interest not as appealing as he originally was. And instead of having him have like a slow decline in his character or have something happen that changes his character, they just kind of change it and expect everybody to go along with it like it's not contrary to everything that we've read about this character before. This whole storyline with Eric also weirdly feels like I'm being pushed into polyamory by this book, simply because Eric is the only one in this now love square between him, Zoe, Stark, and Heath that has like objections to it, and everybody kind of ostracizes him for that, and he gets pushed out of the, not only the romance, but out of the group entirely. You know, I would be all for a book that like encourages, endorses, even just like represents in a way a different type of relationship to young people. But this is not the right way to go about it, okay? I just want to make that very clear. This is not polyamory. This is not Eric and Zoe entering into an open relationship and having boundaries that they've agreed on, and all of, you know, the acceptable things, the essential things, in fact, that go into having a polyamorous relationship. This is Zoe actively cheating on her boyfriend and then, you know, having to face the consequences of those actions. And Eric is not okay with the fact that she has cheated and doesn't want to continue in a polyamorous relationship because that's not what he signed up for. And Eric is perfectly within his right to do that. You know, I don't like Eric. I've never liked Eric. I thought he was boring, colorish, and one-dimensional. And yet I feel we need a little bit of justice for Eric over here because, you know, in the first, he did nothing wrong. This assassination of Eric's character continues throughout the entire series, so much so that he ends up having to be absolved of his dickishness at the end. He went from revered among the students and this overall nice guy who like accepted Damien's boyfriend as his roommate, even though the previous guy like threw up or something because like Jack was gay. He didn't throw up, I made that up. I don't know if that was insensitive, but okay. He was like made out to be this really righteous dude, right? And he went from that to being completely ostracized by the entire school just for refusing to be in a multi-partner relationship with Zoe. What? So, okay, here comes a little bit of plot for you. Zoe keeps having these dreams about Kelowna, right? And it turns out that these aren't just regular dreams, like she's actually meeting Kelowna in her dreams. And this is because, I think they find out through Aphrodite's visions or something, Zoe is the reincarnation of the maiden Aya, who was the stone woman that was created by the wise women of old to entrap Kelowna in the earth. And so she and Kelowna have this old spiritual connection. This is why Zoe is feeling kind of drawn to Kelowna, even though she knows he's an evil guy, right? In one of these dreams, right, okay, girls, I need to get serious with you here, okay? I'm gonna, girls. So, in one of these dreams, Zoe and Kelowna are talking. They're just having like a semi-regular conversation. He's vaguely threatening because he's a bad guy and stuff, but they're just like chatting, okay? And as they're chatting, Kelowna just reaches out and just starts to just fondle the boobs a little bit. It's okay. I want to tell you girls, is this sexy? Is this sexy right now? I'm a guy, I'm here, I'm just speaking to you straight up, girl. You looking fine. What are you doing later on? Are you going to see your sister? Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And just start getting a little. Is that sexy? Is that sexy? It's like Kelowna is treated as like this. He's like a fallen angel archetype, right? He's got no shirt on. He's got big black wings, and he's wearing like these low slung jeans, like a guy on the front of a bad boy romance novel. Okay. He looks the part, and him being here is the ultimate forbidden romance, because if Zoe gives in to him, then, like, I'm not even supposed to be talking about this yet, but if Zoe gives in to him, the world ends. Yeah, so this is the ultimate temptation here. He's meant to be this seductive guy, and I can understand him being stood there and being threatening and sexy and dangerous and stuff. I can get down with that. But I don't know that any man, no matter how attracted I am to him, could pull off the random groping in the middle of a conversation move. I just don't think he could do it. I don't think that's something that is sexy ever. And I don't understand why this was the seduction that you chose to write about right now. Like, what? I don't even have anything to say about this. I'm just completely baffled. And I want to know, like, did anyone read this? Was anyone seduced by this? Please let me know. I need to know. No judgments if you were. I don't give a shit. But there's something inherently unsexy about random groping. I don't know. So yeah, like I said, they find out from Aphrodite's visions that if Zoe and Kelowna fuck, then the world ends somehow. They're never clear about how or why. That's just what's gonna happen, okay? I don't make the rules. I just listen to the visions and then interpret as I see fit. So after they got rid of Neferet and Kelowna in the last book, they ran away to Venice, which is where the High Council of Vampires is living at the moment. And so Zoe and Co decide to follow them there. Oh, I was just trying to remember how they got there because I didn't remember an airport scene. And then, of course, I remembered that the House of Night has a private jet of their own. So, problem solved. We're nearly at the end of the book. I'm pretty sure I said the word plot once. And it's literally like, oh my God, get this thing again. The whole book has been about Zoe having dreams about Kelowna and him playing with her titties. That is literally that's it. That's it. I hope you've enjoyed this. Okay, so they follow him to Venice and they have this little spat in front of the High Council. The High Council don't really see Neferet and Kelowna as a threat, so they say, yeah, you can get on with it, do what you're doing. After the meeting with the High Council, Heath is spying and eavesdropping on Neferet and Kelowna turns around and he kills Heath. I cannot play you the voice note I sent to my friend about this, but rest assured, it was gutted. And I remember that when I tried to read this series again, this was the book that I stopped reading at, and maybe this was the reason, yeah, because they killed Heath. They killed Heath. Okay, let me Let me finish. I'm gonna let me finish. Okay, so he kills Heath and Zoe like sees it about to happen and tries to stop it, but she doesn't get there in time. And so, you know, because she loved Heath so much, as a result, her soul shatters. And so she's kind of not dead, but her body is there with nothing in it. You get me? And that's how the book ends. To be honest, that would have been a really good ending, but there is an epilogue and it is from Zoe's point of view in the other world. So we know that Zoe is fine. We knew that Zoe was going to be fine anyway because Zoe Redbird, nobody's worried, nobody cares, she's not going to die. But it would have been, you could have just left it on a cliffhanger where we didn't know exactly what was going on with her. But no, we had to have an epilogue where we explained that her soul had shattered and she was going to be fine. We just have to go searching through the underworld to find her. It's fine. Anyway, they killed Heath. I can't stop saying it, but they killed Heath. And yeah, I was pretty gutted about it. I don't even have anything to say about it. I just wanted to come back to the fact that they killed Heath. Why did they kill him? I don't know. I don't know because it was pointless, just like everything else in this fucking series. Let's go, let's get on with it. You might notice that I said at the beginning that we introduced Aphrodite's point of view in this book, and then never mentioned it again. That's because Aphrodite's point of view is entirely pointless, apart from to explore her relationship with the warrior Darius. And it is a very cute romance because Aphrodite is this misunderstood, mean girl who receives this unconditional love from him and becomes a sweeter and better person because of it. That's nice. And I love Aphrodite and I love the fact that she got this romance. Like, I love that for her. Trust me, I do. But it is ultimately pointless. There's this one scene where she finally opens up a little bit and tells Darius that she loves him, and it's this really cute and sweet moment. I really did appreciate it, but it marked the completion of Aphrodite's arc as a person, and we're only halfway through the series. So Aphrodite as a character really has nowhere to go from here unless something dramatically changes pretty soon. And it doesn't. We all know it's not going to. So here we are. Aphrodite has completed her arc and Heath is dead. I don't know whether you remember this, but I said they were the best characters in the series. And this is probably why I stopped reading here, because where is there for either of them to go from here? But let me tell you something. This is not the end for Heath. Heath continues to be mistreated throughout this book. But we'll get there, we'll get there. Oh, we'll get there, my friends. I don't really have any notes for this book. Literally one of them is just a passing comment in one of the conversations that somebody checked Vamp Twitter. What's Vamp Twitter? Can somebody explain that to me, please? Or are we just never... Oh, we're never going to mention it again. Okay, that's fine. Moving on. This book has lots of focus on stuff that hasn't been well established, such as the relationship with Stark, which I mentioned was just insta-love, and he actually doesn't have a lot of character, and the character that we have seen has been bad. Like, he's like a full-on bad man. He's a bad man. He was a bad man. He's not a bad man anymore. Just, we have yet to see him do really anything of any kind of value, apart from shooting himself, which if he'd have stayed dead, then maybe. There's not a lot of, like, Zoe and her friends, who are the characters that we know the best. It's a lot of new stuff and a lot of new characters and a lot of Kelowna, who we don't really know anything about directly. He's just kind of this sex symbol who doesn't really have a personality. There's not even any of like Zoe's grandma, who is in contrast to everything else in the series. She is what I would call like a developed character. Zoe, Aphrodite and Stevie Ray are probably the ones who get the most like two-dimensional nurse. Zoe's friends and her grandma, who are out here, Nephrites, kind of, and then everybody else is just like a piece of cardboard that's hanging about at the house at night. We're not even getting, at this point, even speaking with the High Council of Vampires, any more lore about vampires or anything about magic or just even anything about the legend with Kelowna that we haven't heard before. No twist, there's no development, there's nothing, and anything that is developed is new things. It's stuff that we're only just finding out about. It's stuff that we have no grounds to root for. So this book is just boring to me because I don't care about anything that's going on in it. Neferet and Kelowna are shit villains. This is a statement not just concerning the books that we've already discussed, but concerning the entire series. Kelowna especially is very, very pointless, and I understand not why Neferet needed him in order to gain any kind of power in the world, because if anything, he just held her back. Even Neferet, who I have feelings about, feelings that I'm not going to get into right now because they wouldn't make any sense to you, and who I don't entirely dislike despite my contempt for her so far in these videos. They don't do anything. They pose no threat to us. They have posed no threat to us as of yet. Although we know that Neferet has been doing things that are bad. She's killed teenagers to feed the red fledglings, and she doesn't like Zoe, which is, you know, it's a fucking federal offence in this universe. Even when she brought Kelowna out of the earth, the two of them just tossed at the House of Nights for a book and then ran away to Venice to get away from these teenagers who kept harassing them. They're just trying to live their lives at this point, and these guys are really just getting in the way. And obviously we do know that Neferet has these nefarious plans, whatever they may be, but she doesn't seem to be really doing anything about them. She's not a very competent villain here. I think they could just probably let Neferet get on with it for a little bit and nothing would happen. That's all I wrote about Tempted. It's should we move on to Burned? I might like talking about Burned. I don't know, because obviously Zoe's soul shattered in the last book. As a person who's, you know, watched Supernatural a lot, I know that when a person's soul leaves their body, you've got to go into the afterlife to save them. Classic poltergeist shit, if you will. So I thought that we were going to go on this big adventure through the vampire underworld, and we were going to maybe even meet like the goddess, and like maybe some story was going to happen, like, or maybe even like if it wasn't related to the greater plot, it was going to be this fun little diversive adventure into the underworld. And it wasn't, because guess what this entire book was? I'm going to tell you. It was everyone talking about going into the underworld and not doing anything about it. Like everyone's just talking about shit, and occasionally we'll get a chapter from Zoe where she's in the underworld with Heath, and Heath is telling her that she has to go back, and she's saying no, and that's it. And we get these brief little flashes of like other parts of Zoe's soul, you know, because obviously it got like split into bits, and we think, oh great, like when Stark, who's Zoe's warrior, so obviously he's going to be the one to rescue her, goes into the underworld to save her, he's going to convince Zoe to leave Heath and let Heath move on, and then they're going to go on an adventure to different parts of Zoe's psyche to rescue different parts of Zoe's soul, and they're going to like do an exploration of Zoe's character and say goodbye to Heath in this really heartfelt way, that maybe she like relives some memories with him and stuff, because part of her soul is Heath, because they grew up together and they were in love and blah blah blah. It just didn't happen. Everybody was talking about it. They sent Stark to the Isle of Skye, this place of old magic, essentially. Make him half die by paper cutting him a bunch of times, essentially. He gets there, convinces Heath to move on and leave Zoe, and then Kelowna shows up. Zoe sees that Kelowna's about to kill Stark, and Zoe just pulls herself back together like it's absolutely fucking nothing and saves Stark. And that's the end of the book. That's the whole goddamn thing. That's it. The thing was just people talking about what they were going to do, and then the last little part of the book was them doing it, and it was that. I didn't even know I was going to say all that, and I just wrote a better book than them in like 5 seconds. What else happens in this book? So Stevie Ray has a love triangle with Rephaim the bird boy, and this guy called Dallas, who is also a red fledgling. I can't believe I've got to explain this shit, man. Okay, so Stevie Ray's slowly falling in love with Refiam, the bird boy, and Dallas is this, like, he gets treated like Eric, yeah, where, like, he's this really, really nice guy, he's really sweet, and he and Stevie Ray have this really good, normal relationship, and she's being tempted by this really dark relationship with a known enemy, the Ravenmocker, right? Ray gets into a little bit of trouble. She tries to summon this ancient bull who's going to give them some wisdom of some description to defeat Kelowna. But she ends up summoning the wrong bull. She summons the white bull instead of the black bull. And he's the bad guy. Refiam, the bird boy, saves her. Because he saves her and he, like, reveals himself to everyone else, Dallas finds out that Stevie Ray has kind of been seeing him. And completely out of character and completely randomly, Dallas just goes absolutely crazy and, like, tries to kill Stevie Ray. Just for vaguely cheating on him. Like, her and Refiam can't even kiss, I remind you, because he's got a beak. So it was purely emotionally cheating, if anything. Like, it didn't, like, go anywhere, you know what I mean? And he just tries to kill her straight up. This guy's not messing around. Refiam, even though he literally killed one of the teachers when Kelowna broke out of the earth, is now a good guy because he's got daddy issues, because Kelowna just abandoned him after he got injured, like, to die. And it's like, okay, so, like, a guy can just, like, be an actual murderer if he didn't have a good relationship with his dad. This is just, like, standard for this series at this point, isn't it? I shouldn't even be shocked anymore. Oh my god, every man in this series is trash apart from Heath. And he's dead. Point of views in this book are getting more and more random. They don't seem to have any kind of a purpose. They're just like filler elements. We hear other people's thoughts anyway because the gang get together and recap so much. There is a point in one of these books, one of them suggests like a catch-up meeting, and I wanted to kill myself. Because this entire series feels like a fucking catch-up meeting. Like, there is one at the beginning and end of every book and at least 5 in the middle. Oh, God. I've written the word Crometia here. Do you know, I'm gonna, before I talk about Crometia, I'm just gonna take a little break, okay? 5 minutes, I'm gonna make a brew. I need a drink. I'm not gonna tell you how long the break lasted this time. Needless to say, it is November now. And all the lights have stopped working in my office, so here we are, sitting in the dark, talking about vampires. I feel like I've left it so long because I just really don't want to talk about Crometia, but it has to be done. I feel awkward talking about topics like this, even if I know I'm not saying anything bad, because I just don't feel like it's my place. But here we are doing a comprehensive review of the House of Night series, and here Crometia is a character in that series, and there are some glaring things about her that I cannot deny talking about. Crometia is a character that the cast duo have tried to give, like, a unique dialogue to. It's not unusual, like, Stevie Ray, like I said, is, like, really oaky-fied. The G's off the end of certain words, you know, she uses ain't and things like that a lot. You can generally tell when Stevie Ray is talking because of this way. And I suppose because they had such a lot of characters, they maybe wanted to try and give other characters these unique dialogue ticks so that they wouldn't have to keep writing this person said, that person said all the time. However, the way that they chose to do this with Crometia is really problematic. Because Crometia is like an African-American character, right? And her way of speaking is not generally, like, grammatically correct. It's more, you know, like slang vernacular. Everybody understands what she's saying, but it's not like the Queen's English, you know what I mean? A lot of people do this. It's a very common way of speaking. There's absolutely nothing wrong with trying to place a character in your world that speaks like this. However, Aphrodite constantly rags on Crometia for speaking like this and implies that Crometia is unintelligent. She doesn't, like, she's speaking some foreign language, essentially. Like, she's not speaking English and she doesn't know how to. And it just seems a little bit racist. There, I said it. Are you happy now? I said it. It seems racist. All right, the white girl's talking about racism again. I'm not the only person to have picked up on this. I've heard many other people speak on this subject, including people who are actually from that community and have some idea about what they're talking about. Apparently, the way that Cramisha speaks is like, I can't remember what they call it now. It's like African American something vernacular. It's very in keeping with that, and so there's this even more explicitly racist overtone to what's going on in the book. Maybe if they hadn't had Aphrodite ragging on Cramisha about the way that she speaks all the time, it wouldn't have been an issue to have somebody with that kind of vernacular in the book, but they make it an issue. They make it an issue. And I know that Aphrodite is like a bad, kind of mean, kind of outspoken character, but that doesn't mean she has to be like racist. It's so mean. Like, they think that like Aphrodite is being like cute and quirky and like, you know, kind of the bitchy friend, but really she's being homophobic and racist. Let's move on to another issue before I go insane. The only other note for this book is, so I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but like, you could take a shot for every time Zoe says "ah hell," or even just ends a chapter with the words "ah hell" as like her cliffhanger phrase. It's childish and stupid anyway, but she says it so many goddamn times that it becomes really, really annoying. And then she's fucking dead in this book. Like, she's dead. She's non-existent anymore. I think, oh, I'm gonna have like one book where every chapter doesn't end with the words "ah hell." And I swear to Christ, at the end of every fucking chapter in this book, somebody goes, as Zoe would say, "ah hell." I'm going insane. I'm already insane. Like, it's happened. You would get so smashed if you took a shot every time Zoe says "ah hell" in this book. I'm not suggesting that you do it. I'm just letting you know. I would never suggest that anyone read this book. So we end this book with Zoe coming back to her body and everything's fine again. And we move on to the next book, Awakened. Okay, so... So do you remember when Zoe started at the House of Night and she didn't have to do any of her work because she was such a good student? And then like the tiny little bit of work that she had to do planning for the Dark Daughters meeting, she just left it for a month until it was like the week before the ritual. And then she was like, maybe I have to do some research on this whole culture and community that I know nothing about. That tendency to procrastinate comes back into play here. And we find out at the beginning of Awaken that Zoe has just been chilling on the Isle of Skye with Stark, doing nothing for, do I say how long? Weeks. There's like immortal danger going on at the school. Neferet is trying to take over. Her and Kelowna are doing mad shit. And Zoe's out here having a holiday with a boyfriend. I don't know. All of her friends have just been left back at the school to just deal with what is like not a very nice atmosphere after what happened with Neferet and Kelowna and stuff. And there's a lot of like distrust and like unruliness among the student body. And so he's just like, nah, fuck that. Like, I'm literally the most important person at that school and the person that people look to for like guidance and a way to act. God knows why, but she is. But fuck him. Just fuck him. I'm gonna stay here and I'm gonna have my holiday. Fuck him. And would you like to know what happens because Zoe decides to take a little holiday with her boyfriend? Damien's boyfriend, Jack, who I have mentioned before very briefly, but who is such like a non-existent character in the book that it was not worth my time talking about him until now. Neferet kills him so that Zoe has to come back for the funeral. Oh. Jack got introduced in like the second or third book because all of Zoe's friends started to have these romances when everything was still kind of high school drama type shit. Because Damien was like the token gay, there were no other gays mentioned in the school, so like the cast duo had to make up another one and they made up Jack. And Jack just exists to be Damien's boyfriend. He's not, as much as he's in the group and he's always there, you just can forget about him. And I think the cast duo also forget about him sometimes when writing group scenes, because he's there for like a dialogue tag and then he just disappears from the book entirely. The cast duo decide to kill him off as a way to get Zoe to go back. Just this completely inconsequential, like plotless reason. Especially because Zoe didn't even have to be hanging around on the Isle of Skye anyway. Like, we literally could have just started the book with her on the way home. Why did they want to kill Jack? Like, even like I didn't care about this character particularly because he wasn't very well developed. He did not have to die. Like, what reason
did they have for killing him off, apart from the fact that they couldn't be bothered to write him a line of dialogue every now and again? Anyway, the way he dies is completely ridiculous because he's singing the song from the Wicked musical, you know, defying gravity and putting up fucking Christmas decorations, and like his dying words are the words of this fucking musical song, and it's just so weird, and it's kind of just really stereotypical and insensitive. I'm going off today, girls. I'm going off. So when they get back, they find out that like all the other students are like hate criming Raphael, Stevie Ray's boyfriend, because, you know, he killed the teacher and he was the known enemy until he got with this girl. So we really just don't know what his intentions are at this point. This all ends when at the funeral, Nyx, the actual goddess of night, turns up at the school. And Raphael like declares himself to her, and she publicly forgives him, and then everybody else decides they're okay with him, which is fine. I'm pretty sure if like Jesus turned up and told me to be sound with someone who I previously didn't like, I'd be like, oh, okay, dude, like if you're saying she's cool, she's probably cool. But when Nyx shows up, she like calls out Neferet blatantly in front of the entire school and is like, you are not doing great at the minute, my guy. And nobody notices. Nobody takes that as like a red flag about Neferet, even though at this point, you know, Zoe and the gang are kind of publicly outcrying that she's not the person she says she is, right? So everyone's dumb in these books, and that's just facts. Like, even when the actual god shows up and casts doubt on this person, they just don't get it. At the end of the book, we get like a scene of Zoe's mum, randomly out of nowhere. I know she's not been mentioned for a while. It turns out that her husband, you know, the Christian people of faith guy, he like cheated on her. There's never been any indication that he was like unfaithful from Zoe or anything like that. We find out that like she's been cheated on, she's crying, she's on her way to grandma's house, and she's like regretting the way that she's been treating Zoe in this complete 180 turnaround of character. She's gonna go and she's gonna make it up with her family and she's gonna live this better life. And when she turns up at grandma's house, grandma is obviously not there. And Neferet is, and Neferet kills her in order to create this perfect servant, right, who's like made of darkness. She needs like a soul to do that, and she wanted to make the soul out of like Cherokee blood that Zoe and her grandma have in them, right? And she was going to kill the grandma, but then the mum turned up and she was like, good enough. So she does this ritual and she makes this soul, and in the other world, Nyx is speaking to Heath. And she says, right, listen, you and Zoe are like meant to be together. You're going to meet in your next life, whenever that is. You're going to hang around here, and then one day you're going to get reincarnated and you'll meet her again, okay? But there is an opportunity for you to go down to Earth now and help Zoe out. It's not going to be like the right time and stuff. Heath, obviously being the really good guy that he is, says, if I can do something to help out everyone down there, I'm going to go and do it. And so Nyx sends Heath down to inhabit the body of this being that Neferet has created. So he's like been reincarnated as Neferet's servant. So that's kind of fucked up. The complete 180 of Zoe's mom is really annoying as a character. It's really annoying, but I appreciate the fact that we've at least tried to re-implement Heath into the plot, even if it is completely outlandish and ridiculous. But so is everything else at this point, so you know what, I'm willing to go along with it. I think right before writing this book, Cass learned the word impudence, and she really wanted to use it, and so she wrote a chapter from Neferet's point of view at the beginning and used the word impudence like 600 times, and it just got really old really fast, and you were like, have you only just discovered this word? Like, are you having a stroke? Also, and this is a little, take this one with a grain of salt, right, because I read this book online and something might have got fucked up in translation here, but I specifically remember at the beginning of this series, Jack Twist was Jack's name, because obviously he's got the same name as the character from Brokeback Mountain, and in his funeral scene they refer to him as Jack Swift. And I just thought, like, if that is on the part of the cast, then that's really stupid, because they specifically made a big deal out of his name for being the same name as the guy from Brokeback Mountain. And then they fucked up his name. But obviously I don't know. I don't know about that bit. But the fact that I feel like it's something that they would do should give you an idea of the quality of the rest of this book, right? So we're going to leave it there. We're going to leave it at Zoe's mum has died and Heath has been reincarnated as Neferet's guy. Neferet's lackey. And you know, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope I haven't I hope I haven't dissuaded you from reading what is obviously a great series. And I'll see you next time.